Today we're taking a look at the updated Pickleball Apes Pulse line. These have quickly become one of my favorite and most recommended paddle lines that I've tested. The Pulse line launched a few months ago with a lot of praise and great reviews, but after discovering that they broke in a bit more than expected, Pickleball Apes worked with their factory to work on reinforcing their paddles to prevent significant break-in. I've been testing these new reinforced paddles along with their brand new X shape over the past few months, and I'm happy to say that these are still very good paddles. But before we get into the review, if you guys wouldn't mind subscribing to the channel, it really does help make reviews like this possible. Alright, so let's start by quickly taking a look at the 4 available shapes. First up is the E. This is the first shape that Pickleball Apes introduced with their original Energy line, and it is a very interesting one. It's a hyper-elongated or blade-shaped paddle at 17 inches long by 7 inches wide and features a long 6.25-inch handle. Next up is the S. This is Pickleball Apes' take on a hybrid-shaped paddle coming in at 16.4 inches long by 7.6 inches wide, which makes it longer than the average hybrid paddle, but shorter than an elongated paddle. And this features a 5.5-inch handle. Next up is the very hyped and very popular Pulse V. This is a wide body paddle at 15.8 inches long by 8.1 inches wide and also features a 5.5-inch handle. This is also the first shape from Pickleball Apes to feature a more squared off top rather than the arrow curve from the E and the S. And lastly, we have the newly released X. This is more of a traditional elongated shape at 16.5 inches long by 7.5 inches wide and features a 5.75-inch handle. I've mentioned it before, but elongated paddles with long handles tend to be my preferred shape for my playstyle, so I was super excited when Pickleball Apes announced this new shape. Alright, so with all of the shapes out of the way, let's take a quick look at the tech that makes these paddles unique. So these are a Gen 3 style floating core paddle with a dual layer of foam surrounding the entirety of the core. However, what Pickleball Apes did different on these than other Gen 3 paddles is they reinforced that foam ring by encapsulating it in layers of carbon fiber. That gives that foam ring extra structural rigidity while adding stability to the paddle. They're also using a unique face material that they call polyaramid fiber, which is a twill weave using nylon and Kevlar fibers. And the last unique feature on these paddles is they're actually using a 16.5 millimeter polypropylene honeycomb core. And Pickleball Apes actually did a ton of research and development in finding the best honeycomb core available to match the play characteristics of these paddles. The Pulse line retails for $200, but you can take 10% off using discount code SCOOTER, which brings them down to $180. Alright, so all of that sounds good on paper, but how do they play? Well, to put it simply, I think that these are some of the best paddles on the market right now. They offer an exceptional balance of pop, power, and control while having a really great feel. The power on these isn't crazy like top tier power paddles, but it's plenty enough to generate strong serves and drives while still being easier to manage than a pure power paddle. They have plenty of pop for counters and hands battles without being so poppy that you're constantly popping the ball up. And the control game feels great as well. I felt like drops, stinks, resets all felt really great with these paddles. And I felt like these are a perfect example of a modern all-court paddle that leans slightly towards the power side. The tech that Pickleball Apes put into these paddles gives them excellent sweet spots, and they are well weighted and very stable right out of the box. And I honestly didn't feel like they really needed any added weight or customization to play well. However, I did have some fun customizing my X with a very similar setup that I have on my Carbon TrueFoam Genesis 1. And that setup is 4 grams of Pickleball Effect tungsten tape along the sides of the paddle, around the 4 and 8 o'clock position, and that's counterbalanced with an 18-gram flick weight on the bottom. If you're not familiar with flick weight, they are the easiest and, in my opinion, best way to counterbalance a paddle. They can be used to shift the balance point on your paddle lower, making your paddle feel more maneuverable in the hands without making any serious changes to your paddle. I've been really enjoying them, and I think that they're a great accessory to have in your bag. And if you want to pick one of those up, you can actually use my discount code SCOOTER on their website as well. Okay, anyway, back to the paddle. A lot of people always wonder about spin, and the Pulse series generates great spin. I've had no issues getting great spin and generating shape on the ball with these paddles. The only real con that I have with these paddles is that the reinforced foam edges do make off-center shots feel a bit jarring. So while the sweet spots feel very good and are massive on these paddles, the fall off is a bit quicker and harsher than on other paddles. Another big thing to note with the Pulse line is how the feel of the paddles differs between the shapes. I feel like the square top X and V have a bit more of that Gen 3 spring, whereas the Aero Curve models feel a bit stiffer and more responsive, more similar to Gen 2 thermoformed paddles. I personally love that Gen 3 feel, so the X and V are my personal preferences. However, I know a ton of people who love the feel of the S as well. I think that the E is a very niche shape. However, if you are coming from a tennis background or just play a lot of singles, then I think that this is a really interesting and unique option. Overall, I think these are all fantastic paddles, and you really can't go wrong with whichever shape speaks to you. For me personally, the X has been my go-to and is easily in my top 3 paddles right now. As always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and stay tuned, I have more reviews coming soon.